How many of you have had this experience where you knew an answer in class but felt muted when asked? Isn't it true that we as educators unintentionally tend to favor those students who have louder voices and mute the voices and opinions of those students who are soft spoken? I was a soft spoken child, and that became my curse. I struggled with the deafness of others to my existence, first as a child, then as a student, and finally as a doctor. Luckily, not as a wife. Today, I stand before you as an assistant professor in pathology, a creative educator on social media, and a public speaker. But my journey of unmuting myself to reach here on this TEDx stage, where I ask you to unmute the muted, was not easy. My curse transformed into a blessing when my journey helped me discover how to unmute the muted voices of students in my class. And today, I am going to share it with all of you. But before that, let me share a little about myself as to how I was muted. When I was 7 years old, I was diagnosed to have childhood absence seizures, an epileptic disorder where I periodically had blackout moments. My doctors advised me to avoid outdoor activities in order that I do not get physically exerted. Well, my restrictions were temporary because by age 13, I became disease-free. But the impact was long-lasting. My physical isolation and my inability to go out and play with children in the park muted my creative and verbal voice. It impacted my ability to talk confidently with people, and that made me a social misfit. Another incident from my childhood days that I vividly remember was when I was in class 5. My mathematics teacher asked a question in class. I loved mathematics, and that answer came to me in seconds. So in an attempt to show the teacher that I was a smart cookie, I raised my hand right up. The teacher felt impressed. She smiled and nodded, giving me approval to speak up. I immediately stood up, excited to blurt out the answer, and noticed that there were 45 pairs of piercing eyes looking and staring at me. And that gave me a mental blank out. My legs started shivering. I was gripped with fear. My voice was quivering, and I was not able to articulate words. The teacher grew impatient because of her blank stares. She humiliated me in front of the whole class, saying, "When you do not know the answer, why did you waste the precious time of the whole class? So don't repeat this again and sit down." I looked down and sat. My inner voice kept screaming, "When no one wants to listen to you, why do you even try?" The moment I sat down, the answer magically comes back to my mind. And this time, in an attempt to redeem, I tried to scream from the seated position just to be heard by the student who's sitting in front of me, who's the loudest in class, who overhears it and screams it out so loud that the teacher applauds her, while my voice was left unheard and I was further muted. Every educator has the ability to mute or unmute the voices of students. We have all seen in history that Edison or Einstein were muted because of their teachers. My teacher muted me because of her harsh words and judgmental stares. Well, may not be done intentionally, but the damage was done. When I went to medical school with this complex of being a soft-spoken child whose voice was repeatedly muted, my challenges grew exponentially. From talking to patients to answering questions in Viva, everything was uncomfortable because I was supposed to unmute myself, and that was painful. When I joined the junior residency program, I was required to teach. In fact, the word doctor comes from the Latin term docere, which means to teach. When I was assigned classes for the first time, my inner voice kept asking me, "You are required to teach. Can you even do it?" For days, I was not able to sleep because of nightmares of being mocked upon by students. And on the day I took my class, the students could not hear me. My senior teacher sensed this, and she offered me a mic so that I could be heard. For the first time, that small gesture by the teacher boosted my self-esteem, and I felt that I could unmute. We have heard stories of Einstein and Edison that they were able to unmute because of their supportive environment. This made me question myself. Are we as educators unintentionally muting the voices of our Generation Z students? I realized that my job as an educator is not just to teach the students, but to provide them with a supportive environment within classrooms so that they can unmute their voices and express themselves creatively, intelligently, verbally. Today, as I ask you to be intentional, let me share with you the 3 secret identity model that I have embraced in my teaching in my classrooms. Well, I'm sure all of you must have heard about the ABC of medical sciences. Well, I'm not here to tell you how to resuscitate students who have zoned off in classrooms. No. But the ABC identity model tells us the role of an educator in bringing the social media environment within the confines of the classrooms. There is ample research that student engagement improves student learning and student retention. So by using this ABC identity model, we will be able to increase the student engagement. The A in ABC identity model stands for architect. An architect plans, designs, and oversees the smooth construction of buildings. So we as educators also need to be architects who not just plan and design the classes to be content-rich, but also incorporate the learning style of Generation Z. Our Generation Z students love to comment anonymously on social media. They want to be heard without revealing their identities. By becoming an educator alias architect, we can bring that social media culture within classrooms and help students respond anonymously and also write their expectations so that we can listen to what they expect from us. One methodology that I use within my classroom is by combining case scenarios with animated games. And then I provide the students with anonymous tools, which could be clickers, polls, links, forms, or softwares that provide the students with an ability to answer anonymously. And this provides a bidirectional communication where the student is able to have the freedom to express anonymously, while an educator has the ability to listen to those students who have unmuted themselves to respond to those questions. And by doing this, we will be able to engage with students better. The B in ABC identity model stands for Become Beethoven. Our Generation Z students become bored easily. In order to keep them engaged, we need to constantly bring about newness and innovativeness in our classrooms. Our traditional methods of teaching mute the voices of creativity. In order to let them unmute, we need to give them opportunity. And the onus is on educators to become creative in their teaching. As a pathology teacher, I try to be creative by using riddles, analogies, and metaphors within my classrooms. Let me give you an example. My mode of spread is a feeling called love to newborns, needles, and other human beings. The host's defense, silently I weaken. To diagnose me soon, the nature keeps me hidden. When the host's defense is broken, I call my friends for a celebration. And we together convert the human into our habitation. Who am I? Any guesses? Well, the answer is HIV, or human immunodeficiency virus. In order to crack this riddle, the student needs to have knowledge about the modes of spread of HIV, to whom it is spread, how does it infect the humans, and what are the infections that occur in that host once the defense is weakened. According to literature and research, riddles help in analytical thinking and deductive reasoning. The process of solving the riddle makes the solution more memorable than when it is presented as a statement of fact. By providing examples and by encouraging students to come up with their own creative methods, we will be able to give them an opportunity to be creative in their thinking and delivery, and thus help them to unmute themselves by engaging with them. The C in ABC model stands for cheerleader. In order to learn, a vital process is asking questions in class. The act of standing up and asking questions requires courage. So by providing students with that safe learning environment within the confines of the classroom, by not judging their questions, by applauding, by encouraging, by forgetting their mistakes and accepting them as they are, we will be able to provide them with that kind of environment within the classrooms. To sustain a new habit requires rewards, according to Atomic Habits author James Clear. We as educators can become cheerleaders to give our students praise, applaud, and emoticons, which they relate to so well on social media. And by doing this, we will be able to validate their self-esteem. Today, I ask you to be intentional in unmuting the muted voices of our students by encouraging their verbal, creative, inner, and intellectual voice. As educators, let us embrace this ABC identity model to become architects, to become Beethovens, to become cheerleaders, to help our Zoomers find their voice. Thank you.